welcome everyone to our third installment of the Market Research Tableau User Group. We're going to get going. I saw a couple people post that they are either looking for work, Anat is looking for work, and Molly may be hiring. So if you are looking for work, feel free to drop your name. You guys feel free to drop your LinkedIn info if you want to network, whether or not you're looking for work, and then we can connect. See, Jamie's already put his in there, so wonderful. Our agenda for today, we're going to take a look at the survey that we had sent out a while back and see what responses have been coming in, what people are saying. Going to do a community member spotlight with Susan, ask her a few questions, get to know her a little bit better, and then we'll get into our presentation, which is Colin. It's going to talk about data visualization, an art or a science. And from there, we'll move on to some networking, have an open forum, get to know everybody a little bit better, and wrap up with some announcements and some swag winners, which we'll find out more about shortly. Okay. For our survey that we sent out, we've found that, which is kind of what we expected. We have a range of people who have at least were attending the first couple of events. As far as Tableau experience, range of anywhere from 1 to 10 years of Tableau experience. Market research experience is also a range, but it's kind of more polarized, with about half of the people having less experience, even like 1 to 2 years, versus a number of people who have a lot of experience, greater than 10 years. So that was interesting. Some of the interests people were saying were networking breakouts. So we'll do some networking today. And also Tableau features relevant to market research. We're talking about how we can bring some of those more targeted sorts of discussions in. And Colin will touch on that a little bit today. Then we'll look into the future, including people are saying challenges with shaping survey data, which is always a hot topic given the nature of survey data and the way it comes out of different survey tools, and it's never the way that we want it, and we have to do a bunch of stuff to get it to a point where we can actually analyze and visualize it. So definitely a topic that we will look into featuring at a future event. So thanks to all who provided feedback, and we will ask, we'll get into some of these. We want to get to know you a little bit better, particularly for those of you who have attended, who are attending today. And so we'll, touch on some of these topics in our networking session as well. Okay, let's move on to our community spotlight. So now Sharon is going to ask some questions of Susan. And
hello.
Hello, Susan. Thank you for agreeing to being interrogated.
You bet.
I promise we'll be gentle this time.
A-okay.
So tell us first where you're coming from, Susan, where you're located, and what you do.
So I'm in Chandler, Arizona. I own a marketing research agency, almost 15 years old, 15 in, I think, January. And we do, we basically support thought leaders, mostly marketing agency leaders and speakers and authors, in developing their thought leadership based on custom attitudinal segmentation research, which is survey-based. And we use Tableau, and have for many, many years, to visualize our data when we're presenting it to our clients, and also help them explore that data themselves.
That's awesome. Okay, so you just told us how you use Tableau and what Tableau, how do you see maybe Tableau enabling you to do things that you otherwise couldn't?
Well, so, I mean, I started I started the business in 2009. My background's in marketing. I've worked in very big companies and agencies. And when I left my last agency to start Audience Audit, one of the things that allowed me to do that, no joke, was Tableau. Because at the time, I was doing this research and then I would build, you'll all laugh, but I was building like these big like PowerPoint type presentations with all the charts to show everybody. And what a nightmare and a waste of time that was. And I actually I became familiar with Tableau in like 2006 or 7.
Wow.
And then I tried to get my agencies to adopt it. And everybody was like, oh, we don't need that. And when I started my own business, I sort of forgot about it. And then I literally like a year end, I had this light bulb moment. I was like, holy crap, I could use Tableau for this. And for 11 years, my business was a solo practice and we were churning out tons of research and we would not have been able to analyze it effectively or share it at the scale we were doing without Tableau. I mean, Tableau is as essential to my business as is like my cell phone. There was no way to pull it off without it.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, and I was doing that myself for quite a while until I bumped into Josh Wilson about how long ago, Josh? Like 4 years?
No, it was like 2 years ago.
God, it seems like forever.
Anyway,
I don't
maybe 2.5.
Because I was just swamped. And, Josh has just brought a whole nother level of Tableau expertise to what we're doing and really raised our game. So pertinent to your question, often our clients don't understand that they have this misperception about data visualization. They think it's for making things look good. And I'm like, yes, it certainly does that. But the real purpose of it is to let you explore your data without needing, a statistics degree, without basically having to be a data visualization expert. And one of the things that Josh has really done for us is, our studies are big. We're doing 15-minute surveys, big attitudinal analysis, like tons and tons of data. And Josh has been able to help us not only share with our clients what we see in the data, but build things into our Tableau visualizations that allow our clients to easily explore it themselves. So we're building in filters, we're building in view selectors that are really letting our clients just dig in and find the nuggets that are interesting and that they want to be talking about and that they want to be exploring. And that's huge for them. They're always so like, oh my gosh, this is great. Like they're excited they can have a visualization, but one that anyone on their team can explore is really, really powerful. And I'm happy to share, and we have a bunch of visualizations up on Tableau Public because there are thought leadership studies that our clients have published. So if you go to my profile on Tableau Public, you'll be able to see sort of what Josh is doing with our visualizations and how easy they are to explore. And that's been just incredibly powerful for our clients, for sure.
Phenomenal. That's very inspiring. So anything that you can say or how you have benefited maybe not only from the tool, but from the community around Tableau?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, the community was what got me hooked. I went to a Tableau conference. Gosh, I'm trying to remember what it was. Maybe it was like 2010 or something like that. Long time ago in Seattle. And I almost literally bumped into Steve Wexler, who is, of course, the survey visualization guru. And I just met an extraordinary number of amazing people there, many of whom I'm still in touch with. And when I was trying to figure out how to use Tableau for my survey data, that was the community that got me started. Steve was starting to teach that work. And then I actually hired a guy in the Tableau community to basically build me. I told him what I wanted. I gave him my data and I said, can you build me these 5 this small visualization so that I can reverse engineer it and learn how to do it myself, which is how I learned how to do it. And I would just, Steve's always very generous in what he shares with all of the data and all of the files and how to do it. So for me, reverse engineering was how I figured out how to get started with it. And the community is what allowed me to do that. So it's amazing. I know very few providers that have that type of community around their software. And it's really, really wonderful.
Yeah, agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What makes a good Tableau practitioner, in your opinion?
Curiosity. It's curiosity. I'm a researcher, but I'm not a statistician. My sister is the one with the PhD in statistics. And I think that a lot of people worry that they're not qualified or capable or whatever. And if you spend any time on Tableau Public, you'll see lots of people who are doing really fascinating things who aren't technically researchers or aren't technically statisticians. They're just rooting around and exploring and learning from other folks. And I think curiosity is what makes a great Tableau practitioner. It's learning enough to be dangerous in terms of visualizing your stuff and then just never stopping asking questions about it, which is how you're going to learn how to do more things, how to visualize different ways, how to use so many of the tools that are in Tableau. It's just because you're asking questions. So for me, that's it.
Yeah, love it. Who's the Tableau practitioner you follow most?
Well, these days it's Josh Wilson because he's providing all of our visualizations. But honestly, it's still Steve Wexler for me. He's got very pertinent. We do a very narrow range of things. We're not taking published data and working with it. We don't have millions of data sources. We're doing first-party custom research. So Steve and the stuff he teaches and the people he brings in to talk about that kind of thing are really, really wonderful. So I'll listen to him until I can't listen anymore, for sure. He's my guy.
Fabulous. Okay. Moving on to the lightning round, which is just shorter questions, shorter answers, but feel free to elaborate as you see fit. What skill do you use every day that you never expected to be that important?
What skill do I use every day that I didn't expect to be that important? Diplomacy. I think, and it's what I've had to develop. No, I think that I think there's two challenges that people have with market research. One is they're intimidated by it. They've had a bad experience with it. They've been made to feel small or stupid because they don't know all the statistical terms. So one of the things we really try to do is make people feel comfortable and in charge and knowledgeable about what they're doing. And that's why we're working so hard to encourage our clients and teach them how to use their data and visualize it and look at it. So that's one. And then I think if you're in market research, you have to have diplomacy because sometimes you're telling clients things that they don't want to hear, that fly in the face of their expectations. And that's not always an easy conversation to have, but it's an important conversation to have. So I've gotten better at that over the years.
I think we can do a whole talk about that. Maybe we'll invite you to one of the next times to do a full presentation. I'm on
a continuous improvement program with that, as Josh will tell you.
Okay. In August, I think it's August 26th, marks Women's Equality Day. Tell us which woman most influenced your life.
So it's not one woman. It is. So there are 40,000 marketing or advertising agencies in the United States, and 400 of them are owned by women, 1%. So for me, it is the women who are out there owning their businesses, doing this kind of work in a very male-dominated field that are inspiring me. I have a big community of those women. Women in Research is a great community too, if that's your space. WIRE is a wonderful organization. And They just inspire me every day because it's not easy when those are your odds. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, finally, one thing you wish you had known earlier on in your career.
You know, I'm almost 60. That's a really hard question to answer. It's a long list. You know, honestly, it's okay to say no. That it's okay to say no to the wrong clients, to the wrong projects, to the wrong fit. If somebody asks you for something, it's okay to say no. If somebody asks you for something for free, it's okay to say no. Like, I think those boundaries are really important when you are managing a lot in your life. You will never get to work if all you're doing is fixing all of your neighbors' appliances. Like, you've got to draw some boundaries around who you want to help and being able to help them. And it relies on basically saying no to some of the things. And that's important. I wish I'd learned that 40 years ago. Yeah.
It's been so lovely speaking to you, Susan. Thank you again for coming on.
It's my pleasure. What fun.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a hard time saying no sometimes too. Something we could all learn.
Good. You don't have to say it all the time. You just have to know how to say it, and you have to know how to say it nicely. Like, I don't have to say it that much anymore because we're so niched and people know what we do. But when I was really pivoting my agency from being a generalist to being a specialist, I started, and I had to say it a lot. I would just say, "Yeah, we don't do that." Yeah, we don't do that. But I know somebody who does, or whatever. So you got to figure out a nice way to say it, and then you need to practice saying it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I think it's really difficult to say no when you're really busy as well, and something comes up that you'd like to do, but you're just too busy, and you have so much capacity. It's difficult.
Yeah. Or not right now. Or not until next month.
Yeah.
It is hard. It's true.
Or on the flip side of that, when you're trying to grow your business and you feel like you have to say yes to everything.
Right. And we're all in that spot at some point. Like, no judgment for paying your mortgage. I tell clients that when you are really trying to focus your business and niche and work with ideal clients and get a reputation for doing that, you can take that job that comes in because you need the money that isn't quite a right fit with your new niche. Just don't put it on your homepage.
Good advice.
Great advice.
Good advice.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on, and we're going to turn it over to Colin. And for those of you who might be interested in winning some swag, we're going to award swag based on a random selection of people who have asked questions to Colin. So as Colin's presenting, you can feel free to drop a question. I think we'll just use the general chat where we've all been chatting. There's a Q&A feature, but there's few enough of us in here that I think it's fine. We manage it just in the regular chat. So ask questions there, and at the end we'll have some time for people to come off mute, and if you want to ask your questions verbally as well. And Colin, do you want us to interrupt you if there's questions, or do you prefer to have everything saved to the end?
Interrupt away, please. Yeah, interrupt away. Otherwise, it's just me kind of droning on. So let's have a nice sort of informal discussion about some of this stuff, because there's some interesting stuff we want to dig into. So
beautiful. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing, and I'll let you pull up your slides. And if we can't figure it out in 25 seconds,
it's letting me do stuff, which is good. So okay, you can all see that, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so thanks for inviting me to come and talk about data visualization. Is it an art? Is it a science? Is it a bit of both? I first presented this along with another member of the MRTUG, a really nice guy called Andrew Lebrouillet from Arrowstream Analytics here in the UK. He specialises in survey data analysis. So throughout the slides, you'll see Arrowstream, and that's just because it's content we create together. So I want to give some attribution back to Andrew as well. So a little introduction to myself. I've been using Tableau since 2016. And previous to that, I had a long career in local government research, where I was using lots of different legacy systems for sort of mapping and creating charts. But for the last 7 years, I'm director of DataWatch Limited, which is a micro data visualization consultancy of one, based in the northwest of England. And the mission statement really for the company has always been visualizing insights from business and research data and using Tableau. So there's a link there if you want to find out a bit more about me to my website. I hang out on LinkedIn quite a lot, occasionally Twitter, but not so much. Okay.
X, now X.
X, yes. Just to let you know, I can't see the chat at the moment, so if there is anything, maybe Josh, if you could just interrupt me, please. So.
Yep, sure.
So some of the learning outcomes, I'm going to provide very practical insight into the world of data visualization, how an understanding of visual perception and data storytelling can help you enhance your market research reports, and then provide you some practical tips so you can immediately start applying to your work. And the aim is to help you design some more insightful visualizations for your market research reports. So starting off with defining what data visualization is. And I always use this definition from Andy Kirk, who is the author of Visualizing Data, which is a great book if you want to get into this field. And his definition is it's the representation and presentation of data to facilitate understanding. And he breaks it down into 3 distinct stages. So when we look at data, the first thing is we perceive it. So what does the data show us? So, what's big, what's medium, what's small? Are there any relationships that are interesting? Are we comparing one thing to another? Then the second stage is interpreting. What does it mean? So what's good, what's bad, what's meaningful or significant? Is there anything unusual, or is everything as we would expect it to be? And once we've done that, then the next stage is we comprehend it. So what does it mean to me? What's my key message that I want to communicate? What lessons have I learned? Are there anything we want to celebrate, or are there any actions, call to actions that need to be taken? So perceiving, interpreting, and comprehending. And this ties into our memory systems of how we perceive visual information. So we have 3 distinct memory systems. We have what's called an iconic memory. This is where we process sensory information. So we see objects broken down into their components such as lines, color, shape, size, etc. And as soon as we perceive things in our iconic memory, it's then moved to our short-term memory. Now, our short-term memory can only hold a handful of things, maybe 3 to 8 things at any one time for a few seconds. And once it's processed there, then we either move information into our longer-term memory if it's useful, and if it's not useful, then we just get rid of it. And we're constantly going through this process. Once it's stored in our long-term memory, this is where we make sense of the world. This is where we create stories about, store words and images that we remember, for many years to come. So our goal as data visualizers is that if we're trying to show complex information We want to help our audience as much as possible. We want to make it as easy as possible. So what we want to do is tap into this iconic memory, so that people can notice and perceive data instantly. And to do that, we're going to touch on something called pre-attentive processing. So what are pre-attentive attributes? These are visual elements such as length, size, shape, color, etc., that are all around us in the world. And we process these in that iconic memory instantly, subconsciously. We do it without even thinking about it. So there's a little game. We're going to test our sort of attentive processing. So there's a big bank of numbers, big table of numbers, and I want you to count how many number 5s there are in the view. And if you could put that in the chat, please. And Josh, if you wouldn't mind just sort of shouting out some of the responses that we get.
We have 5, 6, 8, 8, 8, 8. Lots of 8s.
Lots of 8s.
7, 9, 7.
And maybe if like people could just maybe in one word, right? How easy is it? Is it to do that, to count these numbers? Is it easy? Is it hard? Is it somewhere in between? What word would you use to describe that?
Not easy, I think. Made my brain hurt. Easy, but question yourself. Tedious. Yeah, I would say not fun. I did not enjoy searching for all the 5s.
Yeah, and
fairly easy,
and
says Patrick. Show off.
Kudos to Patrick. He's a number cruncher. And the reason for that is because we're making you work hard here. We're having to deliberately count the numbers manually using our short-term memory. We're not using that iconic memory. So how can we tap into that iconic memory? So we can use some of these pre-attentive attributes. We can use color. We can gray out all of the information that is less interesting, that's not important, and we can shove that to the background. And we can highlight the information that is important, that is interesting, and bring that to the foreground so it stands out. So hopefully, if you had to go through that exercise again, then this would be an easier way to get to that number of 5, so which I think is, yeah, there's 8. There's 8. Okay, I'm going to do another little exercise. How much bigger is circle B compared to circle A? So if you could put your answers in the chat again, please.
I know the answer, but I'm going to put my first guess from when I first saw it. We have 12 times, 10 times, 15 times, roughly 10, 10, 15.
Okay, so we'll see what the answer is. So the answer is it's 16 times as big in terms of area. It's 4 times as big in terms of diameter, but 16 times as big. Now, most people tend to perceive the difference to be between 10 and 13 times. And I think we had some of those answers there. And that's because our brains tend to slightly underestimate relative scales when they're based on differences in area. So we have to be very careful when we're designing charts in data visualization that are based on comparing values using area alone. So, for example, there's two charts here, and they're showing a part-to-whole relationship in terms of the percentage of sales by type of wine. So they're showing the same data, but the question is, are the sales of Pinot Grigio, which is shown here in is it kind of like lilac, is it smaller, larger, or the same as Sauvignon Blanc? Okay, so again, if you could put your answers in the chat, smaller, larger, or the same, please.
And maybe which chart did you use to come to that conclusion?
Go for the left one. Go for the left one.
Same appears smaller. Looks the same in the pie.
So the answer is Pinot Grigio is slightly larger, but I think we can see if we're using a pie chart, which is a very common chart, you see it all the time in market research reports. It's great if we're looking at, you know, Chardonnay. We can see Chardonnay is much bigger. So, but when we start to try and compare values that are very similar, because of this underestimating in our brains of comparing values using area, it's very difficult to see the difference. Whereas if we use a bar chart, then we bring in this pre-attentive attribute of length. Our brains are really attuned to comparing differences in length. So we can see, even with a tiny difference, that Pinot Grigio is a higher percentage than Sauvignon Blanc. So if we wanted to elevate this chart here a little bit more, we could grey it out and then just use colour to highlight Pinot Grigio and Sauvignon Blanc. And quite often you'll see like a stacked bar chart to show this sort of relationship.
I have a question. Is there any time that a pie chart is appropriate, in your opinion?
Yes, yeah. There's a lot of people in the data visualization community who say never ever create any food-based charts, so pie charts, waffle charts, donut charts. But I'm not of that opinion. I think if they're used correctly, so a good sort of use case would be like no more than say 2 or 3 segments, like 3 segments. I would say anything more than that, it starts to get smaller values. So if you want to show one particularly big segment compared to all others, then I think a pie chart would be okay. And again, you maybe want to just grey out have some grey palettes so that we're reducing the sort of the amount of colour that we're asking people to process. Which, as you go through these slides, we're trying to make it as easy as possible. So trying to reduce that mental load. I think also in terms of market research, as I say, pie charts are so commonly used that people engage with them. They're just kind of drawn to them. So yeah, I think they do have some use cases. Another thing you could do as well is like if you have on Tableau where it's interactive, you could say have your pie chart with your broader categories on the left, and then you could have a bar chart with more detailed subcategories on the right. And if you click on one of the bigger segments, it highlights or filters the bar on the right. I think that's quite a powerful tool, quite intuitive. So how can we use this knowledge of visual processing in our chart design? So when I deal with clients, whether it's market research or if it's business intelligence, then quite often they're still interested in tables of numbers. They're still very popular. They just want to see the data. They want to see the numbers. And this table, for example, it's from Superstore in Tableau, and we're looking at sales, profit and sales by the product category, the product subcategory. We're looking across Central East Southwest region. And the question is, which of my products are unprofitable? So where are we losing money despite, you know, even maybe selling quite a few? And again, like going back to when we did the exercise with the counting the number of fives, it's quite tricky at a glance quickly to be able to pull out that information. You have to manually look through and say, okay, there's a minus figure there. So how can we make this easier to understand and minimize the amount of effort? So we can apply some color. We can apply the pre-attentive attribute of color and turn what was quite a dull looking table of numbers into a highlight table. So highlight tables are known as the gateway drug into data visualization. And that's a phrase that Steve Wexler, who I'm also a big fan of, coined in his brilliant book, Big Picture, which I heartily recommend, as well as the Big Book of Dashboards. And it's because, you know, we've got color on there. We can see we've got an issue with tables. In each 3 of these 4 regions, we are unprofitable there. We've got a big issue with binders as well that we need to address. So we've made it easier to understand quite easily, but I think there's still quite a lot of visual information to process, and I think we could go a little bit further. So can we design a dashboard? Can we bring the pre-attentive attribute of length into the chart to show sales? Can we drag profit onto color, which is going to save us a color legend as well? And hopefully this makes it a little bit easier to understand again. We can see where we've got sales at quite high, but there's still issues with profitability. But one thing I would say with this, and one of the concepts that I want to get across, is that we need to iterate and iterate and iterate based upon feedback. So when I published this on Tableau Public, I had a couple of people say, well, where's sales gone? I can't see sales anymore. Because they were thinking profit, and they were thinking, okay, this is a bar chart showing profit, you've colored it by profit. So I had to do a little bit of rework in putting sales back into the axis label, and just actually, and the very latest version of this, I think we'll come on to see, I've put profit by color in the title as well, to try and make it super clear. And that's really important, that you're always checking back with your audience how clear it is. The other thing is, like, quite often our audience, you know, may want to see the actual numbers. So we've taken that table of numbers away from them, we've given them a dashboard, but, you know, we say go and hover over the tooltips, but they may not always want to do that. So sometimes we want to have the numbers on there depending on who the audience is, if it's like a product manager, for example, versus a CEO. But how can we clean this up a little bit? Because it's a little bit noisy still. And to do that, we want to remove visual clutter. And in terms of visual clutter, we can do that by something called thinking about the data ink ratio. And this is a term that was phrased by Edward Tufte back in the 80s. And he's a famous data visualizer, very much sort of a kind of the purest form. And the definition is the amount of data ink divided by the total ink required to print the graphic. So we've got 2 charts here showing penguin type and body mass. And one of the first ways we can remove visual clutter and improve that data ink ratio is by reducing the amount of data ink that we are using. And that means, in practical terms, things like this color legend. Do we need that color legend? Because we already have the penguin type directly labeled onto the chart. So if you're directly labeling the chart, we don't need the legend. So we can get rid of that, and we're not going to lose any of that insight. The other thing we can do is remove the amount of non-data ink. So that's defined as anything in the visual that isn't really adding to our understanding of the data that we could take out. And sometimes it's referred to as chart junk. So this little picture of this cute penguin, we could potentially remove that and clean up the view. But we need to be careful, because one person's chart junk is somebody else's engaging, emotional icon or image that's going to draw them to the data visualization. So it's a little bit subjective in terms of what is and isn't chart junk. But the benefit of that is that we're going to make it easy to understand for our audience. It's going to be quicker insights, and also we're saving valuable space, because on our visualizations, space is at a premium. So applying that to our dashboard, we can remove those data labels, because do we really need them? Depending on our audience, if it's a high-level CEO of the organization, you know, Susan, for example, she's checking all of her market research clients and saying, like, you know, what are the overall trends? Does she need to know the numbers, or can she just look at the plan at a glance? And this is where I had to put profit on color to try and make it clear.
Mm.
So we've removed, I think I've removed the grid lines there, for example, just to try and remove the data labels to try and clean it up a little bit more. So bringing this back to, again, to sort of the market research industry, this chart is showing the results of a customer shopping survey, back to school survey, which we're coming in a few weeks. We'll be coming into the back to school season here in the UK. And customer survey is showing all of the store offers in one store. And it's a connected dot plot. It's color coded with our store. So you imagine you're the store manager and you want to compare favorability to all stores, and that could be all stores in the chain, or it could be your competitors. And it's being sorted in terms of highest favorability down to lowest. And it's taken from Cole Nussbaumer's Netflix book, Storytelling with Data Let's Practice. It's directly lifted from there, which is a really good book, again, if you want to practice your data storytelling techniques. There's some great exercises in there. So actually, what we're interested in, so we're coming now into the art of data visualization. We're more interested in the gap between our store and all of the other stores. That's the thing that's most interesting to us. So we can redesign our chart to actually focus on that difference. We can sort the chart so from the highest difference down to the lowest. And we can employ some color to identify areas where we're overperforming and also areas where we are underperforming. So there's a real art in terms of how we design our charts. And Cole mentions in her book about thinking like a designer. But then there's also the art of storytelling. Can we tell an engaging story with some clear calls to action? And engaging stories tend to have a plot. They followed by some tension that engages our audience, and then followed by some resolution. And the plot could be, for example, that we set the chart up in terms of the title and the subtitle to explain clearly what it's about. And the tension is the problem or the issue that we're trying to communicate with our chart to our audience. And then the resolution could be a call to action that we annotate in terms of some text, or we put it into the title so that we can tell our audience how they can solve that problem, or where, you know, we could start a discussion. Titles in particular are really important. Real estate people tend to look at the titles quite a lot. So in terms of the color coding, Josh just highlighted to me earlier on, you know, why is this a bit darker? You'd think this would be a darker orange, hue of orange, but The reason for that is that these sales prices and promotions, these are controlled by central office. We can't affect those too much. But what we can highlight is the things in terms of staff and training that we could maybe put something in to improve the customer experience. So we're highlighting that there. Another way we could do this, and Josh had a great idea, is like we could colour all of this orange, same colour, and maybe put some little dots in just to show that these are calls to action. So again, always iterating on how we design these things. So just to finish up, the previous chart is a very highly designed chart, and even I just kind of recreated this in Tableau from the book, and it's a lot of work to create something like this. So how can we bring all of these different elements into our market research reporting on a day-to-day basis? And I do a lot of survey analysis, and I create a lot of visuals for clients using PowerPoint, because they still want to see insights, usually one chart per question, one slide deck, one slide per question. So I try and create these kind of self-contained data stories that export out of Tableau into PowerPoint. And this is for Anywhere Leisure Centre. So Anywhere Leisure Centre wanted to undertake a customer survey, and they wanted to do some segmentation by age. So once we'd run the survey, analyse the results and create the report, one of the first things I do is, going back to the pre-attentive attributes, I will try and grey everything out, and I will apply colour in terms of where I want my audience to focus and where I want to draw their eyes. So in this particular case, it's the middle-aged segment that is of interest. So we're going to colour that green and make that pop and stand out. In terms of the chart choice, I'm going to think like a designer, and I could go for a bar chart, but I want something a little bit more kind of nice to look at, a bit more aesthetically pleasing. And so I've gone for a lollipop chart because it works well with these average value scores. We can pop the number into the end of the lollipop. I'm going to remove some clutter. So I've got rid of grid lines, and because it's directly labeled, I don't need an axis label. I could maybe get rid of these values and have an axis label. Either or is fine, but not necessarily both together. And also in terms of my design thinking, then quite often my sort of instinct is to sort these things from highest to lowest. But if it's survey data, if it's nominal data, then like ordinal data, for example, age, then it makes sense to follow the age order. Or if it's a survey question, it makes sense sometimes to follow the range of how we asked the question in the first place. And the storytelling, it's not the most exciting story, but I try and pack some key takeaway insights into the title as well. And really top tip, so I was going to focus on the oldest age group, but Tableau now has something called its data guide. So when you create your visuals in Tableau, you put them in the dashboard. Top right, there's a little kind of little flag or signpost, and will bring up your design pane, and it's got some built-in statistical analysis where it will tell you which marks are significantly higher or lower, and that was telling me that this middle-aged group was significantly higher. So that's actually was really useful in terms of directing my story of where I wanted to go. So that's my tip.
Can I ask you a question, Colin?
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you're building those and you're exporting them to PDF or something, or PowerPoint for your clients. Are they not tolerant of using them in Tableau?
I think ideally I would like to move towards them using dashboards and being more interactive and drilling down. And certainly, like when I'm doing sort of the BI side of it and I'm working there, then it's dashboards is the default. But it tends to be, and maybe it's because I'm sort of at a smaller scale, and a lot of my clients are other researchers, and I think maybe they like PowerPoint. So there's a licensing issue, or has been in the past, in terms of reselling on to Tableau Explorer licenses, although that's got a bit better recently, because there used to be a sort of minimum number of licenses you had to sell. I think people quite often, if they're qualitative researchers, they like PowerPoint because they can combine it with the qualitative analysis. So if they're doing the qual and I'm doing the quant, and then we can combine that together into a story, like a slide deck that tells that comprehensive story. Yep. But ideally, I'd like to be able to.
I mean, the reason I ask is because we are also telling stories with data. We don't have like one interactive dashboard. Our visualizations we use the story point thing to show exactly the kinds of things that you're showing. Like, here's the overall results for this question, next story point. But if you look at it by age, you see this, and there's something different, you know? And then a lot of our clients, we're having them use Tableau Reader, which doesn't cost them anything. And we ship them out their visualization, and then they can still explore it the way we've set up, but they're using Tableau Reader to do it. So if you do have an interest, that's one thing you might consider.
Yeah, definitely. I've used Tableau Reader many times with clients. It works really well if it's a small organization where there's a handful of people. And then
some big ones have issues. They can't add new software and stuff.
Yeah, and also it's not, maybe if you're emailing out to lots of people, and also the security issues, and at that point you want to go down the kind of Tableau Cloud route and say, okay, I'm going to sell you a license, you can get it online. But the story points definitely is a good tip, and this visual I'm showing you here it is taken from a story point on Tableau Public. So
love it. Yeah, really nice.
Yeah, definitely. Because then you can tell a story and you can build some interactivity into it as well. So I think it's just, I've had a lot of clients and they're just like, can you do me a PowerPoint? So
I hear you.
I've not pushed back enough. So yeah, it's a good shout. So just to kind of finish up, and maybe we could open it up a little bit if we've got time, a couple of minutes, a few minutes. But is it an art? Is it a science? So I think the science helps us to understand how our brains process visual information. The art is to design charts that leverage that knowledge to maximize insight and minimize audience effort. Through storytelling, show our audience what we want them to know, or what we want them to do with that information, and be prepared to iterate based upon audience feedback and collaborative feedback as well. So I think for me, and maybe Susan and Josh, have you found this, like the best visuals are the ones where you've kind of designed it with the client together? You know, you've kind of shown them some templates, got their feedback, iterated, come back with something. So you're kind of building it in collaboration. That's worked really well as well. But happy to take questions or open it up to the chat, you know, in terms of, do people think it's an art, a science, or...
Graham asked the question, how many clients have you successfully steered away? Maybe, I'm not sure if this is maybe to Sharon, but yeah, how many clients have been steered away from asking for a crosstab, maybe in like Tableau, I'm thinking, because they wanted to export to Excel. And I guess we could kind of open this up, you know, to anybody who's, I mean, I think a lot of us have been in this position. Yeah, I mean, for me, I haven't. Usually, when people come to me, they sort of want Tableau, as much as they. But then, you know, I have one client who will still like show me in Excel, like, this is what we want. This is what we want from Tableau, and it's just like a table. And I'm like, oh, we can do better than that, you know. Like, and you're already asking me for Tableau, so you know, there's lots of things we can do with that. But I think it's sort of like a mindset, and people are just used to seeing it a certain way, and it takes a little bit of time, and that's part of it's on us, to kind of ease them into it, and like Colin said, with the highlight tables being the gateway drug, that's I definitely do that. I kind of start there and test the waters, like, I don't just jump straight to like a scatter plot. And a lot of clients still aren't, at that point. So you gotta kind of gauge, where they're at, and give them something that's, sort of as advanced as you can, while still making sense to them.
Yeah, I agree with Josh. Sometimes we will have a client who will get the visualization and everything, and then they will also ask for the raw data so they can do their own thing. But they haven't worked with survey data before, and survey data doesn't look like other data. So they get the file and they're like, I don't know how we do with that. And I'm like, yes, I know, that's why you have a visualization, because survey data is, especially if you're doing choose all that apply questions and stuff like that, it doesn't look like other data, and they can't easily turn it into something with Excel or their pivot tables or whatever. So, but if they ask, we'll give it to them. It just usually doesn't turn out very well. Sometimes, though, we will have clients who will say, hey, can you just download the Excel for this particular chart? And, Tableau lets you do that. You can export to Excel for the data around a particular chart if that's something that they need. Our clients are designing reports. Most of them, again, are agencies. So either we or they are designing reports after we've written them that include charts and stuff like that. And quite honestly, what we're doing is taking screenshots of a very simple chart in Tableau that shows them the data they need to illustrate the point that's being made in the text. It's a column chart or a bar chart or something very, very simple. And then their designer is turning that into something that's a little more designy. Sometimes I do have to go back and go, no, you can't show different sized icons of people because that's area and they don't get that. Or you can't, you don't want to use the pie chart here if you've got more than two segments. Yeah. But overall, I mean, that's working well. So if you have that kind of a situation, sometimes you can support your client in their design by giving them something simple out of Tableau as a screenshot that gives them everything they need to create the icon that they're looking for, or the graphic that they want to have accompany their stuff.
Yeah, and that's a great shout. And I've done that where they have a graphic designer, they want a graphically designed report. You give them the charts that are accurately sized, and they recreate them. I don't know if anyone's come across this, but so when I've spoken to kind of panel owners, so market research panel owners, and they just have this kind of like export out into whatever online charting tool they have, and it turns it around within hours. And one of the things I've been asked is like, okay, can you do PowerPoint as well that's editable? And I think that's where I've had to say, well, Tableau doesn't do editable PowerPoint, it just does static images. And also in terms of these kind of tools that sort of report using templates very quickly. But if you try and do anything more advanced or more bespoke, you run into some problems pretty quickly. And that's where a tool like Tableau can come in, because it's, I describe it as like Lego. You can literally build anything. You can provide a very tailored, bespoke service to your clients as well.
Yep, for sure.
All right. Any other questions for Colin? I feel like we've kind of bridged into networking already. Thank you, Colin. That was a great presentation. Stirred lots of
that was great. Thanks, Colin.
Commentary. I learned something.
Yeah, I have things to talk to Josh about after this meeting. No, I'm I really liked we do the guidance in the headline of each chart. But I like the thing you have on the side that sort of really provides more opportunity to share a little more content around what we're seeing in the chart. I think that's I think that's nice. I think that's something that our clients might benefit from, because the headline takes up a fair amount of space. So we want that to be relatively short and sweet. But that sidebar thing that you've got going with the color indicators about like what we need, what we're doing well, what we need to work on, sort of, I really like that. So I appreciate your sharing that.
You mean the data guide?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a back end part of the dashboard.
Yeah. We haven't, I don't think we've used it. We haven't used it in our stuff yet, but you get to type in the text, right?
Yeah, it's really good. It's really powerful actually, because it will say, right, here's what's highest, here's what's lowest, and you can click on it, and then it will generate some scatter plots, and it starts generating some more charts. Because Tableau is not a stats tool; it's a visualization tool. But you know, anything that's baked in that's easy to use is going to be useful. That means you don't have to hard code SIG testing and things like that into the visualization, or connect to R or Python or whatever. You know, if you've got some quick and easy stuff, because some of the more powerful things for predictive modeling, for example, like Einstein. So if you want to do regression analysis, you know, you've got to have a Salesforce CRM license. That's been kind of over there, out of the way. But if you're just using desktop, then you know these tools that are built in are really useful. So yeah, definitely have a look at that.
Yeah, nice.
All right, great. We're gonna jump into networking. Maybe before we get too far in, I know that so earlier we had Anat who was looking for gigs. I don't know if Anat, if you're still here, if you want to share kind of, you know, what you're looking for. Maybe there's someone here who can help. Or are there, do you want to share?
Sure. I don't have any thing I would say that's specific. I'm doing data analysis and visualization, and I'm looking for, since I'm here, I do have experience in market research, data analysis, a lot of data transformation, using a multitude of tools, even Alteryx. So I'm looking in that area as well, either gigs or clients, or just a way to develop in the field. I'm relatively kind of new in as a consultant. I'm a data consultant. I'm independent. And that's it on a very, very short explanation.
Great.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, knowing how to work with survey data and transform it is a differentiating thing. There's a lot of analysts and visualization people that don't have to deal with that kind of data. They don't know how to do it. There's a lot of people stuck with that for sure. So I would certainly monitor the Tableau sort of community questions around survey data, because there are always people in there going, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do this. And there might be opportunities there, because it is not easy. Even if you're following Steve's thing, sometimes it's just too much for folks and they just want some help. They just want somebody to do it for them.
Yeah. Yep. Thanks.
Which is good for us independents.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
Sorry.
Do you guys want to see my favorite? I'm sorry, Colin. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say in the chat further up, a link to Steve's website, and if you go in there, there's the visualizing survey section, and there's blogs aplenty about how you can do survey data analysis in Tableau. And yeah, there's a lot there, but it's really good. So
it is really good, that's for sure.
And he has a specific article, how to get the data just so. I think that's the around the title. I really regret reading it so long after already doing it and kind of learning from, oh, it looks bad. I can't do anything with that. I need to change it. And then, oh, I could have just read that. I didn't need to think. It's just, so I had to do some of the thinking myself, but it's like, it's good because it validates what I was doing. So I'm happy at least to have read that.
You're not the only one that's had that experience with his stuff. I will promise you that. He has a lot of aha moments, I think, from people who are like, oh no, I get it. You know, one of the things I really like about Steve is he follows with the technology. You know, he looked at Alteryx, and then when Tableau came out with its tool for remodeling data and stuff like that, he was right on it and updating his stuff about how to work in all these various tools, how to work with data out of all kinds of survey platforms. Like he keeps it very consistent, really helpful, relentlessly helpful. Do you guys want to see my favorite pie chart real quick?
Before we jump there, we have some people who haven't said anything yet. Maybe if they, give them a chance to speak up. And we're wondering like what everyone wants to get out of the group. And we kind of shared some of the things like, at least coming from the survey that from our survey that, for example, survey data was a topic. We're kind of already talking about it, but want to know is it survey data or is it something else that really kind of brings you to the group and what you kind of hope to get out of it. So if Bridget or Graham or Patrick, if you're still here and you want to come off mute and share, we'd be interested to hear.
Yeah, I'll jump in. So I lead the data analytics group at my company, Field Piece Instruments, and I don't have a lot of experience firsthand in advanced kind of marketing things, but we are running into a situation where some of our brands are kind of approaching some some sort of headspace where we can't seem to push past a certain percentage of our market share that we're trying to attain. And so I'm really interested if you guys have anything to share regarding specific, market research regarding market share and trying to find out what we can do to try to bolster what we already have.
Great. Sharing. Anyone have any feedback?
In what area?
I've made a note.
In what area?
What are your current offerings?
Well, I guess it's kind of niche. It's like the HVAC industry.
Okay. So servicing or manufacturing or?
Yeah, so we manufacture the tools that the technicians use.
Okay. And you're trying to get a better sense of the competitive environment, competitive set?
Yeah, and again, this is just coming from someone who's not from this realm, but I'm just trying to get ideas on things that might be worth looking into. Just trying to get out of my my wheelhouse a little bit.
Right. Well, one of the first things that comes to mind, actually, a low budget approach would just be to go into AI and start bouncing some ideas out there. I mean, if you're just kind of in an exploratory state and you want to get a better sense of, what forces are at play in your industry, who the major players are, and so forth, I would just start with AI, just as a means of brainstorming and giving yourself maybe some ideas for future directions. But go ahead, somebody else had stepped in there.
No, that's good. That's a good suggestion, Patrick. I would say, are you sort of regional or local, or are you national?
We're national.
Okay. So there's probably a syndicated report out there that will give you data on the state of the industry from a national standpoint. if you just do some Google searching for market research reports in your industry, you'll find places that have done research and they sell it on a syndicated basis. It's not always helpful, especially if you're regional or local. It might not always be relevant. But if you're national, the players will be there and they'll talk about market forces and changes and stuff like that. Those studies may cost you, $3, $4, $5 or whatever. But if you're national, it can be a decent investment in something like that. The other thing is, if there are associations or conferences that are serving your industry, go to some of those. They will often have data or presentations by folks who are talking about what's going on in the industry and stuff like that. You can meet some great people and you can learn some things. And then ultimately, one of the things you can do is your own research, which often, it may cost you a little more, but it's going to be finely tuned to what you actually want to know and what you care about, and sort of can help you not only determine where you want your niche to be and how you want to talk about your services, but the challenges that people are having and sort of what's going on in their options. None of them are going to be as inexpensive as the ChatGPT route, but they can certainly get you started, I think, in the right direction if you've got a little bit of a budget to do some conference stuff and maybe get some research for yourself or buy a syndicated study. Oh, one other thing I should mention too is that there are often pool studies that are happening on an ongoing basis. So studies where you can pay a relatively cost-effective amount of money to add, 5 questions to a study that's going to field every month or something like that, and then just get the data back on your thing. It's probably going to be more of a general market group or whatever, but that's another way to inexpensively get some feedback within a geography or a study that's already being fielded.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Omnibus studies, right, Susan?
Yeah, omnibus. Yeah, if you search for an omnibus study or whatever, and they do them nationally, they also do them regionally and even locally. So depending on what you're looking for, that might be helpful. I hope that helps.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
One additional lens I can offer, and tell me if you guys are already doing this, but I used to do pricing analysis. I don't know if you guys have someone looking at competitive pricing, so how you're priced against your competition, and B, how your own pricing strategy has worked for you in terms of price discounts versus volume. So we can chat about that offline if that's of interest.
Do you still do that, Sharon?
Yeah.
Do you still do that for somebody who does pricing? Because we do not do it, and I won't do it. It's a very specific, as you know, very complex and specific type of research. So good to know that you do that.
Yeah, we can connect offline about it. I'll tell you more.
I love that. Thank you.
Great. Bridget or Patrick, any other thoughts or inputs or desires from the group?
I could talk for a little bit. I'm brand new to this group. I saw Josh, your LinkedIn post about it, and that's how I joined this call. I'm like very new to this entire world. I'm still a college student getting my bachelor's degree in data science and computer science. So I'm just from this group hoping to gain more experience and be able to just learn as much as possible and sort of build up my network.
Awesome. Glad to have you.
Check out Women in Research. Wire. It's a organization, very generous, and lots of talk about opportunities and lots of networking and stuff like that. So that's going to be one of my top recommendations for you. They also have actually a mentoring program. So if you want to, you can apply, and they group that actually will mentor newer So great brain. It's a great.
Yeah, thank you for the recommendation.
You are quite
Bridget, what
welcome.
school are you going to?
I'm currently studying at Butler University in Indianapolis.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Bulldog.
Yep.
Gotcha. But you're in Cleveland?
I'm currently in Cleveland right now for a summer internship. I'm working at a market research company.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah, I'm from Northeast Ohio, so I saw
Oh,
that. I was like, hey,
nice.
Cleveland.
I know Opinion Route is in Cleveland.
I'm working at Opinion Route.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
I've done a fair amount of work, data processing work for Opinion Route. Rich Radcliffe out east,
Yes.
and a couple other folks that do the front end data collection program.
Rich actually pointed me in this direction to start experimenting with Tableau.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, he would know, certainly.
Are you a relative of Terrence?
Yes, I am. He is
So,
my
I don't know
father.
anyone. Okay. I was like, wait, now it's all the pieces are starting to come together.
I looked at the name on the paper I had written down. Very perceptive, Josh. Took me a while.
Well, I didn't connect until I saw Opinion Route. I heard Opinion Route. I was like, Karen, wait a minute.
Yeah, connected to Terrence.
Very cool.
I'm
Patrick,
going
you
to
said
have
that?
to shoot off, guys. I'm afraid because
yeah,
that 5-year-old needs a bath time.
Well,
but it's been super fun to hang out and present. So I'll
it's
catch
late
you
where
next
you are
group.
too.
Thanks, Colin. Really
Colin.
appreciate
Bye
it.
now. Keep.
That was very informative, his presentation. I was just going to mention a couple things, Josh. Coming from my perspective, which is more, you might think of a legacy type system. I mean, I come from a more traditional supplier side background, having been in operations actually since the late 80s when I joined Nielsen. Anyway, they were syndicated, of course, AC Nielsen. And then I moved over to the custom side a few years later. And then not long after that, I was doing quantum processing, which is a scripting package for data processing. Anyway, the primary output, historically has been cross tabulations for analysis. But of course, now you've got the BI stuff, as well as Tableau. And oftentimes what we'll do with cross tabulations is we'll use a tool that allows people to populate their PowerPoint presentation with the data from the survey. There are a number of offerings out there in the MR space. But anyway, one of the things that keeps coming up in my mind is, okay, when we're using Tableau, we're obviously drilling down and we have a good sense of perhaps the hypotheses that have been put out there about a certain marketing approach or so at that point we're able to kind of drill down knowing what the question is. And my point of view after speaking with some people is how do you, when you're doing exploratory research and you're trying to come up with what the important issues are, how do you get that high level view of the data? And that's where my perception and experience tells me, well, you need to look at a cross tabulation. One of the things that I'll mention is I had a client that came from the MR side, and they joined a client side company. They provide software services for spas and yoga studios and so forth. They're big. Anyway, when he came in the company, they were using SPSS and drilling down into the survey data, and he felt that it was a bit premature to be doing that. And he's like, why aren't you looking at crosstabs first? So it was like a different mindset, basically. So that's where I come in, and I start thinking, well, how do you look at the data at a high level? I mean, maybe other people could speak to this far more before me because I'm not really a heavy Tableau user. But are you getting direction from your client, or are you exploring the data. It just seems like it might be a somewhat inefficient approach, given that maybe a higher level approach is called for, say in the form of cross tabulations. But maybe people are doing that too. I don't know. The other thing that I wonder about is, you know, with any data set, you could basically go down a rat hole, obviously, and not come up with anything substantial. And how do you avoid that? I mean, you must have some hypotheses going in, right? Instead of just a kind of exploration of the data per se. So anyway, that's quite a bit to chew on right there. But that's one of the things that, you know, or a number of things that come to mind.
I think a couple of things. First, I would beg the question: how do you glean anything from a crosstab?
How do you glean?
Yeah, because it's like it can be a huge. You know, you have a lot of data, a lot of dimensions, a lot of metrics.
Right.
So maybe we could do like a session one time where we could compare. You know, here is a crosstab of data and how maybe we would go about extracting insights in Tableau. But I think, at least from my perspective, it's always about these overarching questions that I have from the data. And I just start there. And right, Tableau is essentially a querying platform. You're querying the data. You're asking it questions, right?
Sure.
And it's so easy to do when you're exploring. It's so easy to do in Tableau that it's very quick. You can create multiple queries quickly and get those answers. And those answers will lead to additional questions, right? So, and of course, you can also create a crosstab in Tableau if you prefer to view your data in that way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's from my experience.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if just for high level, like the first thing that I do is I'll drop in like just all the questions into a single worksheet, which you can do if you've set up the you know, if you've shaped the data in an efficient way, which, you know, Steve Steve Wexler does in terms of like pivoting the questions. So now the data is long instead of wide, coming like as it typically comes out of a survey tool. So assuming you've done that, then you can just drop in, you know, your question ID or whatever, and then I'll just pull in just how many people, and then like the responses for each question. And then I'll drop in, you know, how many people are answering each one and do like a percentage. So I'm just looking at all the questions. I just go down the list and just as a you know, just like basic descriptive statistics sort of thing, you know, just say, okay, that's what I do from a high level. And then I might drop it in, you know, might start cutting it by different demographics or things, but you know, that's just me trying to get a sense of what, you know, what's going on in the data. And from there, you know, I don't know if that's a high level from what I might present. You know, I might present just like what, you know, how many people, obviously, you know, like how many people responded to the survey, and then there were this many, you know, different demographics. But I mean, it always starts with just like those basic sort of descriptives.
Right.
And that's like a bar chart that I would typically do. That's just because that's a quick visual for me.
Right.
I think we are at time.
We're out of
I
time.
want to be respectful of everyone's time.
That's true. Very good.
Yes. So we have Slack if you guys haven't joined, which I have a link I can post somewhere here. And yeah, if you want to present, definitely reach out to us. We'll be kind of taking the feedback that we got today and you know, trying to see, you know, what sort of topics we might have in the future. And if you're interested in sharing something, we're always open to that as well. So there's the Slack if you haven't joined our Slack but want to. We have a channel in there for sharing jobs, or if you're looking for jobs and just general sort of chat. So we'll announce future events in there, and then if something comes up, be like, hey, I have a question for the group. We're always available there. We can always be reached there. So otherwise, we kind of lost some people. I think I had Graham on my list as asking a question, and Susan. I think those are the people that I wrote down. So congratulations, Graham. We'll follow up with you.
Yay!
And we'll get you some swag.
Thanks,
right.
everyone.
That is
Thanks
it. Thanks for coming.
participation.
And thanks for the chat and being active, and glad to see you. And we'll try to do this again in October, but you'll hear from us when the next event will be scheduled.
Perfect.
Thanks all.
Josh.
Thank you
Bye.
so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.